All right. Doug Evans, welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, my friend.
Wow, it's a pleasure to be here, Stacy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay, I am just excited to have you and your energy here. I really appreciate you taking the time today to share your wisdom, because I think that people's minds are going to be blown when they hear about not only the benefits of sprouts, but just also your journey and all about you. So first off, Doug, my question that I really want to start with, kind of as an icebreaker, is I know that you're super into fruit, and I just want to know, what is your favorite fruit on this earth that you've had so far?
I mean, the favorite one is probably durian
Yep.
that I crave the most. I'm eating durian tonight for dinner as a special treat on Thursday night.
That's me.
But I love, so many fruits, like so
Okay.
many fruits, sweet fruits, sour fruits. I love fruit.
I was hoping you were going to say durian, because I actually found some at our local Asian grocery store, and it's sitting in my freezer. Now, it's not fresh, which I know is different, but I still have yet to experience it. And I watched you eat it not that long ago, and I was like, it just looks so good. Like, it looks almost as good as Mamie Sapote. And, I'm quite obsessed with that, or Mame, however you want to pronounce it. But I'm very excited. And I know that it smells really bad, but it's supposed to taste ridiculously good,
Oh,
right?
wait, I have to say, like, and I don't know where we're going to go with this. It's like, does your lover sweat smell bad, or is it like aphrodisiac?
Right. Okay. Okay. So it's kind of your point of view. I get it. Okay. It's your perception. You decide. You get to decide. I get it.
I
Okay.
think it's polarizing. I mean, if we talk about the smell of durian, it's polarizing. It keeps a lot of people away, and it
Hmm.
attracts a lot of other people.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna eat it no matter if it smells. I can't wait to even just smell it. So I'm very excited. We're waiting for like a good time. Maybe it'll be this weekend. So I'm
Thawed
excited.
out, thawed out in the refrigerator for
Okay.
about 24 hours.
Perfect. Good to know. I'll
Okay.
pull it out tonight, and maybe we'll have it on Saturday. Okay. I'm stoked. All right. I'm ready. Okay. So let's get into some other questions. Really, Doug, I want to ask you, where did your health journey begin? Because I truly look at you as one of the people that I aspire to live like, in terms of not only what you're eating, but the way that you live. I know that you value simplicity. And where did all of this health start with you, this journey to health?
So I grew up lower middle class. We always had some food on the table, but it was sparse, right? And then when I was 17, I went into the military. And so I started to really overeat in the military when there was buffets. Like when there was food available
Oh,
in the
yeah.
mess hall, like I would eat as much as I could out of scarcity.
Mhm.
And then when you're out in the field, you're eating meals ready to eat. There's back to scarcity again. And so food was always an issue. Then when I got out of the military, out of the 82nd Airborne, and I started to make some money, then food was a reward system for me. And it was for my whole family. Like we would go out to eat now that we had a little money. And the reward was, meat, steak, fish, clams, Italian food, pasta, like all sorts of like food. So we ate a lot. And so my macro family all got some sort of chronic illness. So my aunt got diabetes. They chopped off her feet below her ankles. My uncle got heart disease. My mother became overweight, was probably diabetic, ended up getting stomach cancer and dying. My father, who was in great shape, but still ate a lot of animal products, he died of a heart disease in the same hospital as my mother. My brother ended up, becoming diabetic, obese, and has had 3 strokes and a heart attack. So, like, I'll stop there. Like,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we talk about the why, And I was like 38 pounds, 36 pounds overweight and eating as a reward system for me. And then my when my mother died, my father died, and my brother was sick, that's when they say when the student is ready, the teacher will come. Then I met like my teacher, and in the middle of the night, she was plant-based, she was vegan. I never heard of vegan before. I thought it was short for vegetarian. And in a 2-week period, I went from eating street food, processed food, meat, dairy, all this like junk to vegetarian, vegan, and then raw vegan. And then we went to on a raw vegan retreat at Harbin Hot Springs with David Wolf. And so it was like a crazy exposure. And I've never really looked back. Like it all made so much sense to me. And then, so I never had any really chronic illness beyond being overweight. But that's where it began.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you just hit like three of my other questions that I was going to ask you. Okay. Well, David Wolf is the person who influenced me to start sprouting. And that was probably, I mean, he just influenced me, not just sprouting, but like on a massive level with his Sun Food Diet Success System book, I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
That was a major shift for me. That and Alicia Silverstone's The Kind Diet. Those two books, like simultaneously at the same time, were like, okay, we're doing the plants, that's for darn sure. And then obviously I kind of know there's like the hierarchy, like raw vegan is, raw is just like the highest vibe I believe that you can get. And I think there's a lot of science showing that. But okay, so he was your major well, you said you met your teacher, like.
Yeah. Well, Denise Mare was, she was working as a speech language pathologist, at the United Cerebral Palsy. We met, we became fast friends. And then she was like my first exposure to plant-based diet. Like I had never known or had a relationship with someone who was even vegetarian, right? So like her love of animals, like was the like right in my face, the hypocrisy of what I was doing. Like, oh, I loved animals, yet I was eating animals. Like, huh?
No.
And then like I remember like loving chickens, not chicken, right? And so I made that shift. And then I've had many, many influences, over the years, and I just stacked them up. And in the beginning, the desire was for great health, like optimum health. And now, like, I love being plant-based, vegan, raw, but the main things are beyond just the health. It's like the mental clarity and the comfort. Like I've had great successes and I've had great failures. The thing that I'm most like happy with myself is, choosing, to eat plants.
Yeah, I agree. I really do feel so much happier. And I just really wish that everybody else could feel that shift. It's such a shift. And it's just, I don't know. I just truly wish that everybody could feel it. And I think that that's why you are such a big influence in this world. You're helping people feel that shift through sprouts, which we're totally going to talk more about. So one of the questions that I was going to ask you is, I know you're fully plant-based, that's for darn sure, but you are 100% raw.
Yes.
And you have been raw.
I've been raw for 21 years.
21 years.
And
okay.
for about 3-year period, when I was feeding 150, 200 people, whole food plant-based, that not, so all plant-based, but it wasn't exclusively raw. I would taste the food and I would, sit with them. And like, to me, my original desire about plant-based was about optimum health. And then as it shifted towards caring more about the environment and caring about the animals, I kind of lowered my rigidness to include some cooked food.
Mhm.
What happened is that 3 years of doing that, I was eating added salt, added oil,
Yep.
right? Added sweeteners. And all of a sudden I was overeating again.
Mhm.
And like I didn't feel like 100%. And
Yeah.
then when I had lower back pain,
Mhm.
that was like the trigger. So I had lower back pain. I went on a 10-day water only fast. And then when I got off the water only fast, I went to just fruit. And then like I felt great. I had no pain.
Mhm.
And then like I went and raised the standard back
Yeah.
to all raw.
That's great. Okay. So yeah, I'm definitely not fully raw. I have been for, I mean, I did go fully raw for a few, like years, maybe. So I've had my spurts, but I just at this moment, I'm still eating cooked. But I did go mostly SOS free like a little over a year ago. So no more salt, no more added salt. I will enjoy a cocktail every month and a half or something like that, which does have sugar, I would say, in the process. But I mean, it's just this like hierarchy. Like once you can feel the energy difference, so the more raw I eat, the less sluggish I feel. And I think that a lot of people would feel that if they started eating that way too, especially
Yeah.
fruit, you know?
Yeah. Well, look, I think the thing is like in this hierarchy,
Mhm.
it's all about like doing the best you can,
Absolutely.
right? So, there's a lot of criticism of junk food vegans.
Mm.
And I'm like, you know what? They're vegan, they're
They're
loving the
trying.
animals,
Yeah.
they're awake. And, as it becomes easier to have more healthier things, they will eat them. And I am 100% for a junk food vegan versus a junk food like meathead, right?
Yeah.
There's no question,
Oh
right?
yeah. They're on the green side. That's for sure.
Yeah,
That's good.
so they're on the right team and they're moving in the right direction. But if you notice, like I want to lead by example
Yeah.
and of what I'm doing, and I don't criticize people like as much as it's painful for me,
Yeah.
to see people eating meat, chicken, fish, all that dairy, like, and I would not like want to be complicit in it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to do with all those people say, hey, just add
Yes.
sprouts,
Just
right?
start
Just
somewhere.
add
Yeah.
sprouts,
Yes.
right? And so that's my message, add sprouts. And we can talk about why adding sprouts.
Oh, we are. We are. Okay, so last thing on the raw, do you do honey?
No,
No honey. I mean,
no.
that's sugar. I get it.
Well,
100%.
it's
I was
it's
just
not
curious
just
about that.
it's just not it's not just sugar. The main thing is it's like if from a sugar basis, like honey is a very complex carbohydrate
Correct.
and there's tons of minerals in it. I don't do honey because it's the exploitation of the bees,
Right.
right?
You don't want to take it.
Like in almost every instance, there will be bee sacrifice in extracting the honey. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can be the most conscious beekeeper, and then what happens is you're setting an example of creating a market which involves more exploitation and mass production of it. So to me, like I don't need it, so I let it go.
Got it. Got it. I just know yeah. Okay. Wanted to know. All right. So let's see here. We've already talked about your influences in your life. Now, you said that you were feeding people.
Yeah,
What?
so I had a company and we had like 200 people. So
Okay.
and most of them weren't vegan, right? So I said like you know, I cannot tell people what to do when they go home, right?
Okay.
But I can create food for them that's plant-based. And if I feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner and it's delicious, then they'll be really happy. And
Yeah.
it positively influenced them. So I fed hundreds of people for years.
And
at
it was,
Juicero.
this was a food company that you had.
No, well, I had a tech company, like a
Okay.
food tech company called Juicero.
Okay.
And so one of the things in Silicon Valley, it's almost expected, is you have to feed people. Now, some people feed people junk, right? They have unlimited Cokes and Coca-Colas and junk food and donuts. And I was like, oh, well, I would rather feed them high quality. So one of my favorite vegan restaurants in San Francisco was Gracias Madre and
Mhm.
Cafe Gratitude.
Yeah.
So I hired one of the chefs from Cafe Gratitude and Gracias Madre to be our in-house chef. And so we
Oh my
built a
gosh.
kitchen and we just fed people, and like it was just great community and gathering, and people loved it. And so I think everyone was healthier.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, that's incredible. So you're an entrepreneur. Now you have written a book.
Yeah.
I want to start there because we're going to get into what this book is about. When did you decide you were going to write a book?
So I moved to the Mojave Desert in early 2018.
Okay.
And I set up a tent, also known as a yurt,
Mhm.
because I wanted to be in nature. Like I wanted to be grounded. I wanted to breathe fresh air. I wanted to see the sunrises and sunsets and the Milky Way. Like I grew up thinking the Milky Way was a candy bar from M&M Mars, right? Like I didn't know that the Milky Way is this lush concentration of amalgamation of stars, like in the sky, where there's so many stars, it looks milky. Like I didn't know that. And then I moved to a little town near Joshua Tree. And like on day one, after I set up my tent, I was like, well, what am I going to eat? So I quickly went through the stuff that was in my cooler. And then like I did what I had been doing for the last 10 years, vegan near me, nothing. So I realized like not only was I in the desert, I was in a food desert. So I made the trek for a 3 hour round trip to Whole Foods. And I was like, this is absurd. Like I didn't move to like the middle of nowhere to have to go somewhere in order to get food. And so in my meditation that night, I asked the universe, what can I do for food? And the universe said, sprouts. And I was like, huh? And I'd been sprouting for 25 years, but on and off selectively, mostly as a garnish or as a superfood, right? Or as a snack.
Yeah.
And here, like the universe, like literally like drilled into me and said, oh no, Doug, sprouts are vegetables. You can eat sprouts. So I bought like 6 jars. I bought a 35-pound bucket of seeds, and within like a month, most of my calories were coming from sprouts that I was growing in like 1 cubic foot. And I was like, huh? Like this cannot be real.
That's
Like,
crazy.
why isn't everybody sprouting? Like that was my question. Like, why isn't everyone sprouting?
Mhm.
So I picked up the phone. I called Dr. Oz,
Okay.
right? Mehmet Oz. And I was like, hey, Dr. Oz, what do you think about sprouts? Oh, I love sprouts. High nutrition, low calories. Sprouts are great. Called up Mark Hyman. Sprouts are great. He was sprouting in college. Loved sprouts. Called up Dean Ornish. Sprouts are great nutrition, just perfect fits, like reduce heart disease, reverse chronic illness, sprouts. Called up Dr. Joel Kahn. Called up Stacy Kennedy, the nutritionist. And I'm leaving people out. But I called up these people, and I called up Dr. Axe, and I just did his podcast, right? And he's
Yeah.
the paleo guy or the keto
Yes.
guy, right? And so there's all these people. And the thing that they all had in common is they all love sprouts. But none of them love them enough to like pivot their life to be like the sprout megaphone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but they love sprouts. But it gave me the confidence, like I wasn't going to become emaciated and
Yeah.
die. That sprouts were good. So I set up a lab and I'm like growing a lot of sprouts. And then I said, I got to get this message out there. So even though I cheated my way, which I regret, right? But I cheated my way through high school.
Mhm.
I went to New York. I pitched one of the largest publishers in the world, St. Martin's Press, part of Macmillan. And I said, there's never been a book about sprouts published by a major author that has distribution and energy behind it. And I'm prepared to write this book. And the book will be how to sprout, why to sprout, what to do with the sprouts. I have expert, nutritional, medical support. I will get a great recipe developer to write recipes. And so I reached out to Oprah's recipe developer who did Oprah's cookbook. And I said, look, you did great work for Oprah. Book is a success. I need you to do 40 recipes for me, but they need to be all plant-based, all raw, and 50% sprouts. So she signed up for it. Lita Scheintaub, shout out for Lita. So she did a great job doing the book, doing the recipes. And I just sat there and I started to realize there was if you think about the canine species, you've got a Chihuahua and a Great Dane, right? In the sprout world, you can have a chia or poppy or flaxseed, or you could have like a pea or a lentil or garbanzo. Like they're all different. There's so much variety with sprouts that you could just abundantly eat sprouts.
Okay, well, before you go on, what was your 30-pound bucket? Was that a mixed variety of seeds?
I now have like an abundance of 30-pound buckets, but the first
Cool.
one I got was the True Leaf Markets protein mix.
Okay.
That was azuki, a lentil, pea, garbanzo beans, and mung beans.
Okay, Azuki sprouts. I haven't done that yet.
Oh, they're really good. They're very chewy, and it's a beautiful red color. So it has anthocyanidins as the
Yeah.
antioxidants.
Okay.
And
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is good. All right. So you're like really persistent. You're showing up and you're like, look, we're going to make this happen. I'm going to step into this role and we're going to make this book like this epic book. How many hiccups did you have along the way? Like, were there roadblocks? How did you handle them mentally, to get this book from an idea and your support system to out into the world?
yeah, so really good question. And I haven't thought about this, right? So, but I'll tell you that I got the book deal, right? And then I was sprouting anyway. So I'm keeping my sprouting things, but I'm like, I have a very disciplined life. Like I get up 5 a.m. I run 5 or 10K every day in the desert, whether it's 30 degrees up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm running, right? And then I meditate, then I soak in the hot springs, and, then I would, nurture my sprouts and do my sprouts. And then I would sit down to write and nothing would come out, right? I could keep my journal, write my log of what I was doing, but nothing would come out. And then I had initial phone calls with, the illuminary medical world, but now I needed to do interviews. And turns out people took the first call, but it was hard to get people lined up to actually do official interviews. So I really had to kick in my persistence, and there's a fine line between being aggressive and being a stalker. And I probably crossed that line a few times, with some of these male doctors who were tough to nail down. And then, it's really easy to hit, red on the phone and not answer. So that was one level. And then slowly, I started to like check off the interviews and do the things. And then I was sitting in front of the computer to write, and then I'd get up and I'd, eat some raw chocolate, and then I'd eat some sprouted almonds, and then I'd have a kombucha. And I'd keep going, but nothing would come out. And then my wife said to me, we were dating at the time, we weren't married. She's like, Doug, you're just like a college student. I was like, huh? She's like, you're procrastinating like a college student writing a term paper. And that really pissed me off. I mean, it really pissed me off because like here I am, I think of myself as evolved, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, you're procrastinating just like a college student. So like I got frustrated with her. And then the next day I said, I'm going to write 500 words every day. I'm going to sit down. And once I sit down to write, I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to answer any phone calls until my word count exceeds 500 words.
Wow.
And then in 60 days, I banged out the book, which was 60,000 words, 288 pages. And
wow.
Like along the way, like I definitely had the quitting thoughts.
Yeah.
Because it was really hard. Like I could be enthusiastic about a sprout, and turns out like there's not that much different between radish and clover sprouts.
Yeah.
Right. But I gotta, when I'm like nurturing and courting the radish sprout energy, I got to go deep on her and like make sure that she feels the love, and the reader can open that up and they can't feel like it's an obligatory part. So kind of tuning in to each one. And then I was like saying, this isn't worth, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I just want to, like, I'll go do something else. Like it was easier for me to like, pick up trash along the highway than to write the book.
Yeah. Gosh. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Okay. This is amazing. That was like a 30-day meditation for you then, basically, like a 30-day, 60. Okay. 60-day long meditation. Like, and it's a beautiful thing. And the work that I think that anything good is worth the work. That's not really what I'm trying to say that, but in a different way.
It's a struggle.
All of the good things come through struggle.
Yeah. I mean, look, every aspect that was difficult, the fact checking, the editing, the testing of the recipes, like butting heads with the editor at like, like every aspiring, healthy person wants to have like a luxurious book with color pictures and slick paper, and my editor shut me down and she says, no, trade paperback, no photography, just write the words. It's a manifesto, it's a treatise, no. And I ended up like, because I don't take no very easily, I hired my own photographer. I paid out of my pocket, right, to hire her, to convince the editor to give me a little color in the book.
Yeah.
No. And because she didn't want the cost of the book to go up, she thought like, we got to keep the cost down and this message. And, it was an unproven market. Like now the book is in the 7th printing, tens of thousands of copies in print. And like, I don't know when your podcast will drop or when someone will see this, but like today, the book is in the top 1% of all books on Amazon, right? Out of 3.4 million books, I think it's like number 4,400 of all books on Amazon. So like I trust the editor, and then like in my meditation, right? And I spend a lot of time in meditation. Like I was asking myself, my universe, the higher consciousness, why I resist like authority, why I didn't do my homework, why like I was such a rebel. And I think it had to do with like generations of historical persecution where like not having the trust.
Mhm.
So rebelling out of the independence of not trusting. Like I look back now and like I cried the other day in my meditation because all of my teachers, my parents, like everyone was sweet. They were like, Doug, just do your homework, be a good student, pay attention. And like, no, I wanted none of that. Just absolutely none of it. And it shaped me. So like I turned out okay.
Yeah.
But like I had to ask myself, like really seeking to understand why I resist.
Wow. Wow. This is powerful. Okay. So, and inspiring, by the way. I love knowing your routine on a daily basis. I think that all people that make a massive impact have these special um, routines. And I was going to say like seance, but I like to know what happens in Doug's day on a daily basis. This is really good. So sprouts are life-giving. Sprouts are a complete food. Can you explain to the listeners the difference between a seed, a bean, a grain, and a sprout? Like, what happens to these seeds, these nuts, these grains, these beans to transform into a sprout? What is happening there?
So there's enormous variety, but it all comes back to being the same, right? They're all the same. And basically a seed is a complete living organism in a dormant state, right? And through years of creation or evolution, what have you, that these seeds have been programmed and designed to activate in certain circumstances. So if you were to take a seed, like there are discovered seeds that are 1,200 years old that will still sprout,
Which is
right?
yeah.
So these seeds, which could look like if you were to open up that mixed protein blend and eat them in the seed dry form, you would break your teeth.
Mhm.
Like they would crush the enamel on your teeth,
Mhm.
right? But if you soak them and create this environment for germination, there's your sweet boy.
I know.
Um,
Oh, and go with your daddy, please.
Well, I want you to bring me at your parents.
Okay, later on, close the door, please. Mommy's interviewing Doug. Thank you.
uh, so if you were to take these seeds, right, and you create the environment, which is pretty similar for all of them, there's different techniques because they're all wild and different. But if you were to take the environment, which basically raising the relative humidity, right, to a point consistently through soaking and then rinsing and letting them dry where they're respiring and releasing oxygen and consuming CO2, carbon, that the seeds germinate. And when they germinate, it's a metamorphosis similar to that of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, right? It's that powerful that, for example, take a lentil. If you were to soak and sprout a lentil in 36 hours, you double the antioxidant levels because this thing is coming alive, right? You triple the vitamin C because it's coming alive. And you double the soluble and insoluble fiber as it takes the water, it activates the life force, and it becomes enzymatically rich.
Mhm.
And then you can eat that raw lentil in 36 hours, like just soak it, sprout it, and just eat it. And as it grows, every day, the nutrition is changing, like every day. So in 5 days, that lentil will actually have green leaves and it'll have a root and a shoot will come out of it. So if you look at what you're doing with sprouting, there would be no life on this planet, certainly no plant life on the planet, without seeds that sprout and germinate. So there's a difference between a seed and a nut, right? Nuts are seeds, but not seed. No, all nuts are seeds and not all seeds are nuts. As they grow, that's a separate part. But basically everything needs to sprout to grow. And when it sprouts, it becomes alive. And and by the way, I am for whole food, right? So I will love like eating a pineapple, right? I love pineapple. I don't eat like the leaves of the pineapple. I don't eat the core, right? I don't eat those. With sprouts, I get to eat the whole thing. Like you eat the root, you eat the shoot, you eat the shell, and within the seed itself contains the embryo and an endosperm, and this in plant intelligence, the genius of plant intelligence is programmed in every seed. And so you're eating enzymatically rich alive. Like the difference between like live food and raw food and cooked food is it's living enzymatic food. And when you think about the seed, when it's in the seed form, it has enzymatic inhibitors to protect it so that it will be ready and stay kind of shelf stable, life stable until the right environment comes for it to sprout. Because if it was just like open, and everything was just fresh, then they would disintegrate. So the genius of the plant reproductive part is so that a bird or an animal, or a human will eat it. It will go through the digestive tract. As it's going through the digestive tract, the digestive fluids kind of remove the enzyme inhibitors and the phytic acid and speak to, in a language that we don't understand, that seed that says, hey, you know what? Come to life, baby. Time to germinate. And then if the animal poops it out hundreds of feet, thousands of feet, miles away, that's how it's spreading its seed. And so that's like how it's happening. So when we get to consume this living food, we're like vibrationally aligned with source energy. And like I sound woo-woo, right? It's like, okay.
It's like the most epic miracle ever. I think it's pretty incredible. And like you think about those things, what are those things in like the desert that like spin around that have seeds in them? Oh my gosh. They're like dust balls, like,
oh yeah, dirt devils.
Yeah, but they have like, I mean, it's just that those are there to like spread the seeds like far and wide. I don't know, that's kind of off topic, but
yeah, like a little mini tornadoes.
Yeah, I mean, and it's incredible the way that nature knows how to give us everything that we need. Can we go back to phytic acid real quick, Doug? So a lot of people call phytic acid like an anti-nutrient on like beans, right? So
right, and lectins.
Yes, right. So what are we doing to those as we're sprouting and eating these garbanzo beans raw, essentially? Are those anti-nutrients being released after all of that rinsing and once it becomes
100%. Like the seed is going through this metamorphosis and the enzyme inhibitors get removed, as the seed is bursting into life. So, and many sprouts, like I like to eat it all. The only thing like I don't eat is I don't eat like the sunflower shells because they're a little rough going out.
Yeah.
But most people talk to me like, how do I remove the hulls on the alfalfa and the broccoli? I'm like, it's good fiber, just eat it.
Yeah.
Just eat the whole thing.
Yeah. So I heard on Dr. Axe's episode that you were chatting about your team that you have with that like are studying, that are studying the nutritional components of sprouts. Can you
Yeah.
explain a little bit about that? Because I know there's studies out there showing how, like cancer crushing, um, like broccoli sprouts, those, the sulforaphane, right, is
Yes.
very, very high in the broccoli sprouts versus the actual like adult counterpart or like the fully grown broccoli crown. And I am pretty obsessed with alliums and onions, garlic, because I think that they're miraculous foods. Has there been, well, I know that this is like 5 questions in one, but like you have a team of people that are studying the miracles of sprouts and like the actual science of them, and their nutritional value. We know about sulforaphane. Do we know about allicin content in garlic and onion sprouts versus their adult?
No, we have not gone there yet. I mean, kind of the head of my scientific advisory, team is Dr. Jed Fahey from Johns Hopkins University, who basically, discovered the high concentration of the glucoraphanin and myrosinase, the precursor to sulforaphane in broccoli sprouts. And then I also have a data scientist, on our team who's studying the data on 2 fronts, on both the nutrition front and on the food safety front, right? And it turns out like all sprouts are really safe. Like they're really safe. And there's been a lot of like propaganda and around like sprout safety. And if you drill into the data, so we took the entire database from the CDC and we parsed it and optimized it to look at both identified people hand raising saying I got sick, to hospitalizations and to deaths across all of these different food types. And then if you drill down into where the source came from, like the worst thing in the world was having a fast food chain like using sprouts with cross contamination with animal products and poor hygiene. So, those are probably the most unsafe. And then you look at commercially grown sprouts sold through supermarkets and health food stores, really safe. And sprouts grown at home, buying organic seeds that have been, properly rinsed and treated, using any sort of sterilizing agent. And I cover a lot of this in my book. And sprouting those at home under the human care of the adornment, like I can't think of one case, of unsafe parts. So the team that I'm working on, I've got medical advisors, I've got nutritional advisors, I've got research scientists, I've got botanical advisors. Like all of a sudden, my life, unfolded, with like seeking to understand what makes sprouts, healthy. How can this scale? How can you grow them in different environments? And, I published on Instagram, I think IGTV interview I did with Jed Fahey last year, even before my book came out. And my relationship has just gotten deeper with him. And all I do every day is I talk about sprouts.
Well, sprouts are incredible and everybody needs to understand how fun and easy they are. So making sure that they get your book is going to be their first step, because there's so many different ways to grow your sprouts. I mean, there's just, it's super affordable and you get a ton out of your investment. I mean, you're making what, like volume wise, Doug, like what is it? Like 1 tablespoon of broccoli sprouts creates how many cups of broccoli?
Probably three or four cups
Yeah.
of broccoli sprouts from, 1 tablespoon. But
Yeah.
I'll just say, like, in short, as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I look at sprouts as vegetables, right? And vegetables are food, right? So you could totally be whole food plant-based and just eat sprouts. And I'm not saying to do that, although I think it would be great, but you can add sprouts to breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, smoothies, soups, juices. Like, sprouts go everywhere and anywhere. They're so adaptable and there's so many varieties. The second thing, I look at sprouts as vitamins. That literally, sprouts contain all 13 vitamins, all micronutrients, phytonutrients, polyphenols, bioflavonoids, antioxidants, prebiotics, probiotics, enzymes. Like, they're in sprouts. Like, so, preference would be to, as opposed to using, Flintstones chewy vitamins or some synthetic vitamin or some whey protein powder, is like, use whole foods. And if you're going to use whole foods, the most concentrated form of whole plant foods are sprouts. So I look at that. And then if you look at sprouts as medicine, like, I'm sure when Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, he wasn't talking about let the Whopper be the medicine,
No.
right? He was talking about, like, plants. Oh, there's
Yeah.
your other one.
Yeah,
Or is
no,
that
it's the same one. Honey?
You could bring them in. Like,
Yeah, can you just stand right here, please? Okay, well, I'll get the box. Come sit here. We're about to wrap up with Doug. Okay, so last question regarding sprouts, and then we will ask the one question that I ask all of my guests, Doug. What happens to these sprouts if we cook them? Are we destroying this amazing package that the seed has given to us from sprouting? Or, I know that you believe fully in the raw, like totally, but what happens if we want to cook the bean sprouts?
Look, I think that certain sprouts cook better than others, right? So when you germinate, the legumes and the grains, and then you cook them, like, the hardier they are, like, the more they will withstand heat and cooking, right? If you were to cook broccoli, radish, clover, alfalfa, like, they basically disappear because they're mostly water, right? And so when they turn to shrivel down to next to nothing. So, but there's a whole, like, chapter of sprouted crackers, sprouted cereals, sprouted breads that are much more enzymatically active because they've been sprouted. For my own choice, like, it just, like, I used to hate cleaning, right? Doing the dishes, cleaning pots and pans. Like, when you're eating raw, like, you're not creating AGEs, you're not creating acrylamides, you're not, like, charring things. So it's, the cleanup is so easy, when things are raw.
Yeah.
And so, and I did a funny post of, like, fast food where I just grabbed, like, a handful and, like, I'm just eating it, like, while I'm driving. Like, that's fast food to me.
I saw you downed an avocado and you cut your sprouts from the trunk. Like, I showed Kyle that, because my husband, because I convinced him to eat that way. I'll give him, like, just a big bowl of bananas and avocado and, like, and some microgreens. And I'm like, here, eat. And he's like, all right, bye. And he'll go to the farm. He thought that was weird probably 2 years ago, but now he understands that. He just feels even better when he eats that way.
Well, look, I want to give, like, a shout out to Dr. Joel Furman, who
Oh,
wrote
yeah.
the foreword to my book, but he wrote Eat to Live, right? Not live to eat. right? And if you're living to eat, you're obsessing on food. And then, I also interviewed Dr. Alan Goldhammer, from True North, I've gone there, to True North facility to do a guided water fast. And so there's so much information out there. And I think what we need to do, and it's part of my message, is it's all about love, right? You find people, you connect with them, you give them some sprouts, you give them a copy of the sprout book, you call them up, help them sprout, go over, share some sprouts. And like, I've taken people who you never in a million years would think that they would sprout, right? And then they become sprout fanatics. Like, it resonates with them. Like, the sprouts literally feed your microbiome. Microbiome controls the brain, and then sprouts can become as addictive as anything else. It's like whatever you eat, like, the body can be trained to want more of. So it's a combination that I look at of raising your standards and knowing that everything you put in your mouth is a life or death decision.
It is.
So if you know that, like, raise your standards, be present, and live a happy and healthy and life where you have a small footprint on the planet. You're helping people. Like, I think that's what it's about.
It is. Okay, so that just goes with my question. Doug, what does holistic living mean to you? What does holistic mean in your mind?
I mean, I think holistic living to me is being in nature, being grounded, eating plants, getting sunshine, exercising, doing, both physical resistance and strength work, and being flexible. Like, if you were to look, like, right over my shoulder, like, I leave the yoga mat always on the floor, right? So I get to, be present. And like, sometimes I'll do yoga in the morning, and then sometimes I just do various asanas throughout the day to just, get me back into my body, out of this head into the body. And when you're in the body, you're in the heart. And so when I'm doing my yoga, I'm breathing and I'm feeling my body, and I'm seeing things in perspective.
So good. Oh my gosh, friend. Okay. Wow. Lots to ponder here from this episode, Doug. Where can we find you? How can we stay connected? Of course, aside from buying the Sprout book.
Yeah.
Where do we find you?
So you could sign up for my email list on thesproutbook.com. So I'm procrastinating on that, but I will be sending out some really good stuff because we're researching these papers. So I'm going to be publishing our first paper in a peer-reviewed journal, with Dr. Jed Fahey and Jack shortly. So we'll be working on that. And so sign up for my mailing list on thesproutbook.com. And then Instagram is probably my platform. Just my name, Doug Evans. And, I share funny information there and learning more how to do that.
I love following you on Instagram. It's so much fun. Okay, so we know where to find you, Doug. Thank you so much for your time. It has been an honor to hold space with you today and to hear your amazing story. It's super inspiring, and I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you, Stacy, and you're so persistent and polite, and I'm glad you made it happen. So thank you.
Thank you for your time, my friend.
My pleasure. Have a beautiful day.
You too.